My name is David Klein, and in 2019, I was working for a food delivery app while finishing community college in Ohio. I won't say which app, but it's one of the big ones everyone uses. Back then, I preferred late night shifts because there was less traffic and better tips. Most of the time, it was drunk college students ordering burgers at 1 a.m. or families too tired to cook. Nothing exciting, just easy money. At least that's what I thought. It was a Friday night in early October, the kind of night where the air is cold but not freezing yet. Around 12:47 a.m., I got an order notification while sitting in a Taco Bell parking lot. The payout was unusually high, $38 for a short 15-minute drive. That immediately caught my attention. Big tips at that hour usually meant one of two things: someone very generous or something weird. But I was broke, so I accepted it without thinking twice. The delivery address was in a wooded residential area outside the main town. Not completely rural, but isolated enough that streetlights were rare and houses were spaced far apart. I delivered near there once before during daylight, and even then it felt quiet in a way that made your ears ring. When I picked up the food, the restaurant worker gave me a strange look and said, "You're the one taking that order?" I laughed and said, "Yeah, why?" He just shrugged and said, "Nothing, just drive safe." That should have been my first sign. The drive there started normal. Suburban roads, closed gas stations, empty intersections. But once I turned onto Pine Hollow Road, everything changed. No streetlights, no sidewalks, just tall trees on both sides swallowing my headlights. My GPS said I had 4 minutes left, but it felt longer because there were no other cars, no houses visible, just darkness. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from the customer. "Don't use the driveway. Park on the road, walk to the back door." I stared at the message at a stop sign. Walk to the back door? At 1 a.m.? That wasn't normal. Most people barely wanted to open their front door that late. I almost canceled, but the payout was too good. I told myself maybe the driveway was blocked or under construction. When I reached the address, I almost missed it because the house lights were completely off. The GPS insisted I had arrived. I slowed down and saw a narrow gravel driveway barely visible between trees. The house sat about 50 feet back, mostly hidden. No porch light, no window lights, nothing. I parked on the side of the road like the message said. As soon as I turned off my engine, the silence hit me. No crickets, no wind, just complete stillness. Another message buzzed. "I see you. Bring it to the back." My heart skipped. See me? There were no lights on. My headlights were off. How could they see me? I grabbed the food and stepped out anyway, trying to act calm. The gravel crunched loudly under my shoes as I walked down the driveway. The house was older, 2 stories. Paint peeling, no decorations, no cards visible. The front door looked unused, like nobody had entered through it in years. I walked along the side of the house toward the backyard. The grass was uneven and damp. I could barely see where I was stepping. That's when I noticed something strange. All the windows were covered from the inside. Not curtains, something darker. Thick material, almost like trash bags taped over the glass. I reached the back porch. It was small, wooden, and sagging slightly. There was a single metal door with no window, no lights. I knocked once. Nothing. I waited about 20 seconds and knocked again, louder. Still nothing. My phone buzzed again. "Leave it, then stand by the fence." Stand by the fence? At this point, my instincts were screaming at me to leave, but I was young, stupid, and wanted that money. So I placed the bag near the door. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The back door handle was turning. Slowly. But the door wasn't opening. It was just turning back and forth, like someone on the other side was gripping it tightly but hesitating. I stepped back without thinking. The handle stopped moving. Then, in a low voice from behind the door, I heard, "You came alone?" I froze. The voice wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It was calm. Too calm. I didn't answer. A few seconds passed. Then the voice said, "That's good." The door suddenly stopped rattling. Then silence. My phone buzzed again. "Wait there." That was it. That was the moment I knew something wasn't right. No normal customer talks like that. No normal person asks you to wait by a fence in total darkness. I backed away slowly toward the yard's edge. The fence was old wooden planks about chest height. Behind it was pure darkness, trees stretching into nothing. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Not from inside the house, from behind the fence. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving parallel to me. Someone was on the other side of the fence. My breathing became shallow. The footsteps stopped when I stopped moving. They matched me. Then I heard whispering. I couldn't make out the words, but there were at least two voices. Not one. Two. I didn't think. I ran. I sprinted back around the house, nearly slipping on wet grass. As I rounded the corner, I saw something that still makes my skin crawl. The front door was now open. Completely open. Pitch black inside. I had not heard it open. I got into my car so fast I dropped my keys twice. When I finally started the engine and turned on my headlights, I saw a figure standing in the doorway. Tall, completely still, just watching. I drove away without looking back. About 2 minutes down the road, my phone rang. It was the customer number. I declined it. It rang again and again. Then I received one final message. You were not supposed to leave. I reported the incident to the delivery app. They said they would investigate. The next morning, I looked up the address out of curiosity. The house had been listed as abandoned for over 2 years. No registered occupants, no utilities active. Nothing. I quit night deliveries the next week. To this day, I still think about one thing. When I ran to my car, I never heard the back door open. So who was turning the handle and who was walking behind that fence? I don't know, but I'm certain of one thing. That order was never about the food. This happened in 2021 when I was working as a late-night delivery driver in Arizona. I had just moved there from Nevada and didn't know the area well yet. The city itself was normal during the day. Busy streets, strip malls, palm trees, dry heat. But at night, especially after midnight, it felt completely different. Empty roads, closed businesses, neon signs flickering in silence, the kind of atmosphere where even your own thoughts feel louder. I preferred working between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Less traffic, bigger tips, and fewer apartment complexes with broken elevators. Most orders were simple. Fast food, convenience store snacks, sometimes alcohol deliveries. Nothing unusual. Until the motel order. It was around 1:18 a.m. when I received the notification. Pickup from a 24-hour diner off Route 17. Drop-off location, Desert Palms Motel. The payout was decent, about $26 for a short drive. Nothing suspicious there. Motels were common delivery spots. Travelers get hungry late at night. Truck drivers, couples, people passing through. I accepted it without hesitation. The diner was quiet when I arrived, only 2 customers inside. A tired-looking waitress handed me a plastic bag filled with burgers and fries. When she read the name on the receipt, she paused for a second. "You're taking this to Desert Palms?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Why?" She hesitated, then forced a small smile. "Nothing. Just be careful out there." That phrase again. Be careful. People say it casually, but sometimes the tone behind it carries weight. I shrugged it off and walked back to my car. The drive took about 9 minutes. As I approached the motel, I could see its neon sign from down the road. Half the letters were burnt out. It read, Desert Palms Motel. The parking lot lights flickered unevenly. A few cars were scattered around, but the place looked mostly empty. It wasn't the worst motel I'd seen, but it definitely wasn't somewhere you'd book for a vacation. The instructions on the app read, Room 28, do not knock, call when outside. That was unusual, but not alarming. Some people don't want noise late at night. I parked near room 28. The building was single-story, doors facing the parking lot. Room 28 was at the far corner, partially in shadow. The outdoor hallway light above it was broken, leaving that section darker than the rest. I stepped out of my car and immediately felt exposed. Motels at night have a different energy. Open parking lots, multiple blind spots. Anyone can watch you from behind curtains. I grabbed the food and walked toward room 28. The curtains were closed, no light visible from inside. I called the number through the app. It rang once, then the call connected, but no one spoke. I waited. "Hello, delivery," I said. Silence. Then a slow inhale on the other end. Not breathing like someone out of breath, just deliberately loud breathing. I felt my grip tighten on the food bag. "Can you open the door?" I asked. The breathing stopped. Then a voice, low, male, said quietly, "Set it down, step back." The tone wasn't aggressive. It was calm. Too calm. I placed the bag in front of the door and stepped back about 6 feet. Nothing happened. 10 seconds passed. 20. 30. Then I heard something inside the room. A thud. Like something heavy being moved. Then another sound. Not footsteps. Dragging. Like something being pulled across carpet. My mouth went dry. I glanced around the parking lot. No one else was outside. The motel office across the lot had its lights off. I stepped back further. Suddenly, the door opened, but only a few inches. The chain lock was still on. Through the narrow gap, I could see darkness. No lights on inside. A hand slowly reached down toward the food. It wasn't shaking. It wasn't rushed. It was steady. But something was wrong. The hand looked dirty. Not just stained, but almost gray. The fingernails were dark, uneven. As the hand grabbed the bag, I noticed something else. There was no light behind it. The room was completely black. Even at 1:30 a.m., most people at least turn on a lamp. The bag was pulled inside. The door closed. The lock clicked. That should have been the end of it. But then my phone buzzed. A new message from the customer. "Stay." I stared at the screen. Stay? Why? Another message. "Wait for your tip." The tip was already included digitally. There was no reason for me to stay. I typed back. "Tip is already added. Have a good night." Immediately, 3 dots appeared. Typing. Then stopped. Then typing again. "Please, just stay for a minute." Something about that message made my stomach twist. It didn't sound demanding anymore. It sounded desperate. I don't know why I didn't just leave. Maybe curiosity, maybe stupidity. I stood there another 20 seconds. Then I heard it again, dragging, closer to the door this time. And then a voice, not from the phone, from inside the room, muffled. "Help me." I froze. It was faint, but it was clear. "Help me." It was a different voice than the one on the phone, higher pitched, weaker, and it wasn't directed at me loudly. It sounded like someone trying not to be heard. My heart started pounding in my ears. I stepped closer to the door. "Hello?" I said quietly. Silence. Then suddenly, the same low male voice from before said sharply, "Leave." The tone had changed. It wasn't calm anymore. It was warning. I backed up instinctively. Then the door handle rattled violently from the inside, like someone grabbed it aggressively, but the door didn't open. It just shook in place. My body finally reacted before my brain did. I turned and walked quickly back to my car. As I reached it, I heard something that still makes my skin crawl. Room 28's door opened fully. I didn't turn around immediately. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd see. But I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, not running, just walking toward me. I opened my car door and got inside quickly. As I started the engine, I finally looked up. A man was standing about 10 feet away from my car door. Tall, thin, wearing a dark hoodie. His face was partially shadowed by the parking lot light behind him, but I could see his eyes. He wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. He was smiling. Not wide, not exaggerated, just a small, calm smile, like he found something amusing. He raised one hand slowly and pointed toward room 28. I looked past him. The motel room door was still open, and inside, I could see a shape on the floor. It looked like someone lying down, not moving. The light from the parking lot barely reached in, but I could see enough to know it wasn't just a pile of clothes. It was a person. Before I could process it, the man stepped closer to my driver's side window. I slammed the car into reverse and backed up fast, nearly hitting another parked car. When I looked forward again, he hadn't chased me. He was still standing there, watching, smiling. I drove straight to the nearest gas station and called the police. I told them everything. The voice, the dragging, the help me. They asked for the address and said officers would check it out. I waited at the gas station for about 20 minutes. No callbacks, no updates. The next day, I searched online for any news about Desert Palms Motel. Nothing. No police reports, no incidents, no arrests. 2 weeks later, I drove by that same road during daylight out of curiosity. The motel sign was gone, boarded up. A large notice posted on the office door, closed indefinitely. I don't know what happened in room 28. I don't know who that man was, and I don't know if the voice I heard was real or if it was something my brain filled in. But I do know this. That smile, that calm, controlled smile, it wasn't the smile of someone surprised. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. And for some reason, he wanted me to see it. This happened to me in late 2022 when I was working as a night delivery driver in North Carolina. At that point, I had already been doing delivery work for almost 3 years. I had seen a lot of weird situations, drunk customers, angry customers, houses with creepy vibes, but nothing that truly scared me. Most of the time, the job was simple. Pick up food, follow GPS, drop it off, move on to the next order. But one delivery changed the way I work forever. It was a Wednesday night in November, around 12:30 a.m. I remember the night clearly because it had started raining earlier and the streets were slick and reflective under the streetlights. Business was slow that night. I had been sitting in my car outside a 24-hour burger place waiting for an order for almost 20 minutes. Then finally, a request popped up. The order was from a pizza place about 5 minutes away. The delivery distance was short, maybe 10 minutes total. The payout wasn't amazing, but I accepted it because I was tired of sitting around doing nothing. The address was in a neighborhood called Brook Hollow. I had delivered there before during the daytime. It was one of those quiet suburban areas with identical houses, trimmed lawns, and long curved streets. Nothing about the order seemed unusual. Until I picked up the food. The worker at the pizza place handed me 2 large boxes and a bag of drinks. As I was confirming the order, he looked at the address on the receipt and frowned slightly. "Late delivery for that area," he said casually. "Yeah, probably someone gaming or something." He shrugged. "Maybe." I didn't think about it again. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle by the time I left the restaurant. The roads were empty and the windshield wipers made that slow, rhythmic sound that almost puts you into autopilot when you're driving. About 8 minutes later, my GPS told me to turn into Brook Hollow. The neighborhood looked different at night. Most houses were completely dark. Only a few porch lights were on. The wet pavement reflected the dim street lights, making everything look slightly distorted. The delivery instructions simply said, "Leave at front door." No special requests. I followed the GPS until it directed me to a small cul-de-sac at the end of the street. The house number matched the address in the app, 742 Brook Hollow Lane. It was a 2-story house with a small porch and a single light above the garage. I parked in front of the curb, grabbed the pizza boxes, and walked up the driveway. As I reached the porch, I noticed something strange. The front door was slightly open. Not wide open, just enough that the gap was visible, maybe 2 inches. I stopped walking. Most people who choose leave at door usually don't leave their door open, but I assumed maybe they were expecting the delivery. I knocked lightly. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. The house was completely silent. No TV sounds, no footsteps, just the quiet sound of rain hitting the driveway behind me. I decided to just follow the instructions. I placed the pizza boxes on the porch near the door and took a picture through the app. Just as I finished, the door slowly creaked open another inch. Not quickly, slowly, like someone inside had gently pushed it. I stepped back. "Delivery," I said. Silence. Then the voice said again, "Come in." This time the tone was slightly different, more demanding. I didn't answer. I just turned around and walked quickly back toward my car. Halfway down the driveway, I heard the front door open fully. The sound echoed across the quiet cul-de-sac. I stopped and turned around. A man was standing in the doorway. He was tall and wearing dark clothes, but something immediately stood out. He wasn't looking at the pizza. He was looking directly at me. Not blinking, not moving, just staring. I forced a polite wave. "Have a good night," I said. He didn't respond. He didn't even glance at the food. Instead, he slowly stepped off the porch and started walking toward me. Something about the way he moved made my chest tighten. It wasn't aggressive. It was controlled, deliberate, like he had already decided what he was going to do. I quickly got into my car and locked the doors. As I started the engine, the man stopped at the edge of the driveway, still staring, still expressionless. Then my phone buzzed. A new message from the customer. I looked down. It said, "Wrong house." I frowned. The GPS had clearly said 742. I checked the address again. 742 Brook Hollow Lane. Then another message appeared. "That's not the house." My heart started racing. If that wasn't the house, then who was the man walking toward me? I looked up. The man was now standing next to my driver's side window. I had no idea how he had reached my car that fast. He leaned slightly toward the glass. I could finally see his face clearly under the streetlight, and he was smiling. Not a friendly smile, not an angry one either, just a quiet, calm smile. He tapped the window twice with his knuckle, slowly. I didn't roll the window down. I didn't say anything. We just stared at each other for about 5 seconds. Then he said something through the glass. I couldn't hear it clearly, but it looked like he said, "You came." Every instinct in my body screamed at me to leave. I put the car in drive and pulled away quickly. As I drove out of the cul-de-sac, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the real customer. "Where are you?" I replied while stopped at a stop sign. GPS took me to 742. The response came immediately. "That's impossible. 742 burned down last year." My hands went cold. I checked the map again. The pin had moved. Now it showed 748 Brook Hollow Lane, 3 houses down from where I had been. I turned around slowly and drove back into the cul-de-sac. House 742 was gone. Completely gone. In its place was an empty lot surrounded by temporary fencing. Charred remains of a foundation were barely visible under the rain. I felt a wave of confusion hit me. I had just stood on a porch, knocked on a door, seen a man walk out. But now, there was no house there, no porch, nothing. Just an empty, burned lot. My heart started pounding as I scanned the street. The other houses looked normal, quiet, dark, but something felt deeply wrong. Then I noticed something in my rearview mirror, at the edge of the empty lot, standing near the fence. The same man, watching my car, still smiling. I didn't deliver another order that night. I drove straight home. The next day I contacted support to report the GPS issue. They checked the address history and told me something that still bothers me to this day. No one had placed an order from 742. The order had always been from 748, which means somehow my GPS had taken me to a house that no longer existed, and somehow someone had been waiting for me there. Before you leave, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next horror story. And let me know in the comments, which story disturbed you the most tonight?